one. That is a good one. Wow. Wowee. And this is why you never quit, no matter how far behind you are. If you can win, you can win. Priest, I don't believe it. Wow. And that's going to do it. A boss takes the series. So crazy. 2 games to 1 to Priest.
Wow. I love Priest, man. Welcome back, everybody, to the European Regional Finals for Hearthstone World Championship. Ultimately, we're going to get to the 4 players during this weekend. If anybody's just tuning in, we just finished 3 series, and our next one will be Lowelo versus Matthew. Now, the previous series between Green Sheep and as well as Tice took a little bit of time, but we're finally at the midway point, Artosovits. How are you guys been feeling about the games?
They've been fantastic. We keep going to 5 games. We keep having long, epic ones that have lots of turnarounds. I think it's been great.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see all these guys with different backgrounds just duke it out, and see, also I'm really excited that we saw such a high level play from Core and Max, and now that we have another one relatively unknown players matching up against each other, I actually have high expectations for the match still, because they're all going to be good.
Yeah, I never used to have that in Hearthstone, you know, over the past year plus that we've all been playing, you know, if they were people you've never heard of, you'd sit there and you'd see mistake after mistake after mistake. At this point, we have these guys that, you know, are obviously very good, but we don't see them streaming that much. We don't see them that many tournaments, but I'm with you. I'm actually expecting fantastic play out of these guys because I think that everyone in this tournament so far has been really great.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Lowelo and Matthew, we got a chance to chat with them a little bit. There's been interviews posted, and their deck selections have been on screen, so let's evaluate them. Artosis, what do you think right here, first glance?
Okay, so this is kind of interesting. They both are bringing a mage, and Matthew has gotten rid of Lowelo's mage, whereas Lowelo's gotten rid of Druid.
Yeah, that's
I'm trying to...
Wow.
Is Mage really worth a ban right now? People put Mage as one of the weaker decks at the current metagame.
I totally here's what my first instinct here. Lowelo's ban of Druid, I think I totally understand this. This looks logical to me with the classes that he has, that he would want Druid out of there. To get rid of Mage, though, I think it's because he's playing Warlock and Rogue, which makes me think that he's playing Handlock and Miracle, because Mage can do very well against both those. So yeah, I think this seems pretty logical. What do you think, Savitz?
I think it's really interesting to see not 1 but 2 players bring Mage, because Mage has been considered kind of weak right now, and some players have made it work, and there can be a lot of different variations of Mage that can be viable. There's the hyper aggressive Mage, which has been lately popping up, which is excellent against Handlock specifically. And yeah, I mean, looking at Lowelo's lineup, that's really far from what I would personally play. But it's going to be interesting to see how the warrior is going to work out, and yeah, I really want to see the mage deck by Matthew. What is it going to be? It's going to be the hype mage. It's going to be an aggro mage. Is it going to be something with with a lot of secrets, like Kirin Tor mage maybe?
Yeah,
you never know.
Deck Admirable used or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of different mage variations that we could end up seeing here.
That honestly is probably Mage's biggest strength at the moment. The fact that there are multiple builds out there that you can't predict. And even if you do, there's lots of different tech that you can include to throw off the opponent's scent. The next series, by the way, will be casted by Artosis and myself. So it should be fun because I haven't casted with Dan in a long time. And it'll be between these 2 guys who are relatively unknown. For people who don't know too much about Matthew, the qualifiers, a round of 128 Swiss, was his first ever Hearthstone tournament. Can you believe that? His first time he ever tried competition. He gets all the way through, you know, barely, of course, by the skin of his teeth, but still, he's here now, fighting for one of the 4 spots in Europe. Absolute great story. And of course, Lowelo, he's part of the French scene, which is kind of insular. It's difficult to find out a lot about these players, but just the fact that he's part of the Gamers Origin team and he's been able to get a lot of recognition, and that should tell you a lot about him.
And, you know, his deck choices are just so interesting.
Absolutely.
As you were saying, Savitz, that's just I think Warrior is the one deck that I really didn't think we'd see. I didn't think we'd really see Hunter, but I could see someone pulling a Hunter in here, kind of being a little bit tricky.
What does Warrior beat here?
I'm not sure. I guess it's probably just, you know, a control warrior, like a generic control warrior. But
maybe.
Who knows?
At the qualifiers, like a warrior was based on statistics, warrior was a complete disaster. Very few players actually made it. I think it's like 1 or 2 players. Many people played it, but very few did well with it. I mean, there are some like I believe Strife played a warrior on the NA qualifier, and I think Lowelo also played like on the EU qualifier. He played warrior.
He's very comfortable. And so maybe it pays off for him. We'll have to see. The first game is about to get underway, so let's see if Lowelo can use this lineup to go up against newcomer Matthew. All right, and we're back, everybody.
Here we go into the game.
Here. That's right. Thanks, Janne. We'll see you in a little bit. All right,
That's
so
fantastic.
Lowell vs. Matthew, you know, those lineups you're talking about how Warrior doesn't feel like a strong pick in the current metagame, but at the same time, isn't that another reason why perhaps maybe Lowelo can surprise people?
Yeah.
Because people weren't counting on Warrior to be here.
Totally. It seems like his decks are based off of a lot of surprise. He wants to be a little bit unpredictable. So we'll see how that
Speaking of
works for him.
unpredictable, I think this is the secret mage that you were referring to with Savitz. You have Q and Tori Mage and Mirror Entity, and this is really important because you can grab early tempo. It's more of that mid-range scale that you control the board, and you continue to snowball in order to get to the victory.
Yeah.
And you know, now that you're familiar with a little bit of this deck, what do you feel like it does matching up against this Priest?
Okay, I haven't gotten to play it a lot against Priest because the thing is, normally you look at like Mage versus Priest and you're a little bit afraid of it because Mage is burn and Priest is heal, but this is a very different type of Mage deck. If this is in fact what Admirable use, that Tides kind of created.
Right.
I did play a lot of games with that deck, and I have to say, like, if you get a decent start with it, it's insane. When you get like a couple good duplicates off or something like that, you know, you have those counter spells in there. So it's a deck that can gain ridiculous amounts of card advantage. That's for sure.
Nope, card advantage, card
and
number one comes out
sure.
here. Absolutely. Now, I think the Loot Hoarder already is indicative of what kind of mage, but at the same time, Lowell still has to approach cautiously because the Loot Hoarder, it doesn't give away full information, but that's a first clue. Yeah,
I mean, right now you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, it's probably not just straight up like a Freeze Giants or something. It's the Loot Hoarder does
unlikely
point towards a Secret Mage because, like, you're not going to be too sad duplicating that, right? It's not too bad.
In fact, part of the weaknesses pre-Naxxramas of this kind of deck was that Mage really lacked card draw for a long time. You relied on things like Acolyte of Pain and then the 2 Arcane Intellects, and that was it. But now you have Duplicate to give you not only the draws, but the longevity on the minions you want. And then you also start having the Death Rattle snowballs and whatnot of compounding. It starts to actually be pretty decent.
Let's not forget Mad Scientist. When you're playing like some of these decks, for instance, the Tides version that Admirable used, I believe it had 6 secrets in it. So like, that is a lot. I mean, it's pretty crazy what you can get done with that.
And my favorite, of course, is Counterspell, because that's the one where you're really afraid to play around, and then, of course, sometimes you lose the coin, which is the worst thing.
it's very true, but I got to tell you, it's the funniest thing in the world when someone's trying to flare and a Counterspell gets it.
Definitely.
Well, let's see what he's going to go ahead for here. Like, he could go... I mean, he has an Aucheneye, and he has Circle. So does he actually Circle here? Okay, he is going to...
I think so. You know, you're not really afraid.
It would just die otherwise,
right? I think the number one thing you're afraid of is just straight up polymorph, but it's always, to be honest, it's always a crapshoot. You're not sure if these guys are running the full removal like that. You know that they have fireballs and frostbolts as finishers and removal, but polymorph is always these one wild card factor you're not sure about.
I mean, you're going to see probably maximum one polymorph deck in one polymorph in any mage deck if it has one.
Right.
And in these Secret Mage decks, I wouldn't really count it being in there. It's like the deck is already so crammed, packed full of cards, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. One of those decks. I mean, you see Ysera, for Ysera, for example, being one of those late game scaling cards, and then for Mage, it's Ragnaros. So these will eventually have the capability of going late game and have a lot of viability. But at the same time, the Mage deck is really important. It's so crucial to establish the board position from these couple turns.
Well, looking at this turn here, it seems to me like it's a Kieran Tormage turn. I really don't like using Frostbolt in both your minions to get rid of this. I feel like you're losing so much tempo with that. And if he really wants to attack into one of your dudes and heal up his guy, that's okay, good, great. You just use 2 mana and So yeah, I really like this play.
Yeah. Not to mention that you still have a little bit of time before the inevitable fear of Cabal Shadow Priest completely overwhelms you, where everything you do, you're keeping that in mind. Does Holy Nova completely destroy this, by the way? I feel like Lowelo has a really good opportunity.
Yeah. It doesn't... I guess it doesn't kill everything. Like, because it will leave the Kirantor or it will leave a 2-1 Golem. That's a little bit rough. I'm surprised that he coined and now is thinking about it.
Yeah,
that could
now
be
he's thinking of an
getting to
alternative.
him.
Well, he does have an opportunity to use Dark Cultist and try to build up a stronger board. That way, heal up. A 3-4 and a 4-5, pretty decent. But of course, Mirror Entity. And then, just like you said, the ability to build tempo off of a 3-mana creature and also give some life to the Harvest Golem, maybe it's going to be working out.
Totally. He can absolutely take this board right over. Has actually a lot of options here. With the Frostbolt, he has his possible ping. Of course, he can throw down this Harvest Golem as well. There's a lot of different ways he can go about this.
Yeah, and he just uses coin. So he still has another turn, or 2 turns rather, before Cabal Shadow Priest completely can flip the board around. So I think you take this opportunity to develop what you have, because pretty soon you're going to be paranoid to drop this Harvest Golem. Of course, you want to see what you draw first if you're going to do any play here with the Loot Hoarder.
Yeah, that is definitely the best opener, because no matter what, you're going to kill this guy off. Oh, he is playing a Polymorph? But you're definitely going to kill off the Injured Blade Master no matter what. Absolutely. That you can't leave that guy out.
Okay.
I like it. I really liked his turn here. This was nice.
Yeah, you're extremely board-centric as this Mage deck. It's always about taking what's on the board and then snowballing. And then when you have cards like Fireball, it just gives you a lot of leverage to keep pushing for damage while keeping the board clean. And then this is where the Mage eventually just compounds its advantage to a win.
Well, looking at this, this is kind of interesting from Lowelo. We're starting to see more of cards in his deck, right? He's got a Silence. He's playing 2 Shadow Word Pains. He has Ysera in here.
Oh yeah, Shadow Word Pain is a weird card to include nowadays because you know, Priest is so focused on making sure that the early game can be decided just by like Pyromancer and you know, Holy Smite and Silence. And what do you think about that?
Well, you know, with 2 Pains and Ysera, because if I see 2 Pains, I'm like, is this just like a super anti-aggro? Which you would never really want to open with this series, so I didn't think of that at all, you know, coming into this. But the fact that he has Ysera as well, it's just, it seems like a very spell-heavy, I mean, he's got...
Yeah, combo-centric.
Yeah.
Like classic Priest. The very beginnings of Hearthstone, Priest was so combo-oriented where you're able to do a bunch of combinations with your spells in order to survive. Then people called it gimmicky.
Yeah,
and then now it seems like they've refined it a lot by putting more minions as your removal instead of Shadow Word. Yeah, because look, it even go 1 for 1. It killed half a Harvest Golem.
Yeah, that's not the greatest play right there, but you know, he is setting up at least for a possible Holy Nova. The thing is, if he does heal up this 3-1.
Yeah, well, there's 2 things about that play. The first is, of course, as the Mage player, you're very happy because he lost value on that. But the second thing is, I feel like if he does that, he telegraphs that he doesn't have Cabal Shadow Priest. Why would you kill off that Harvest Golem?
That's a good point.
So maybe this second Harvest Golem is a little bit more free to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he could go for something like that.
My fate is sealed.
Let's see here.
Lotheb's is a much stronger play, but
I think Lotheb makes a lot of sense because when I see that, I'm like, oh, are we going to go into a Holy Nova turn? You know, are you setting this up for Holy Nova to not suck? And of course, by playing this, you can't even cast the Holy Nova. But, you know, on top of that, it gives a target for that Death Rattle to use.
Yeah, pretty ugly situation, honestly, for Lowelo. You know, if
there's no good target here.
No. the risk of the Dark Cultist giving the health buff to the 5/5 is enormous. Oh no, this is terrible for Lowelo.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Oh, and a Fireball draw. This is very good for the Mage because now, again, like we said, he can leverage the board position, push for 7 damage, establish a Harvest Golem behind this. And he still has removal with like Ysera, Rag, and Polymorph.
Ridiculously powerful cards remaining in his hand here. Like, this gives him a turn 8 Rag after having such a powerful board. Like, there's nothing that his opponent can do to the board that is going to like make Rag necessarily a bad play coming up. You know, it's, of course, he does have a way to deal with it in his hand, possibly, but
it's the 8 damage that goes to the face
yeah.
if he can't do anything.
Yeah.
Look at his next turn. He's got no minion that he can play. Everything is either too expensive or situational.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's probably going to have to use Shadow Word Death on the Lotheb.
Oh, man, and then that paves the way for the Ragnaros to do 8.
God, that's like so nice for him.
I wonder if Matthew wants to take this opportunity to develop Sylvanas by trading. And if he does this, then he keeps Fireball as a potential finisher.
Yeah.
And then not only that, he has damage on board to actually kill his opponent.
And you know what? 5 health is enough. So, thing is, I think here we basically have to see Shadow Word Death on Sylvanas. And it's the turn is so weak that it's probably that and either a really bad Shadow Madness or that and heal.
Yeah, I think you're right, Artosis. I don't see an alternative. I mean, you're just at this point counting 12 damage. You know this deck runs spells, and otherwise it's just a very passive turn. Like you said, you take 2 damage off the board and heal. That is extremely weak.
By the way, we haven't. I mean, we've seen like some of the secret cards, like Kirin Tor, and I guess a couple secrets we saw.
Right,
but
the
we haven't.
Entity.
Other than that, it's like reminding me of like an old Trump deck or something. You know, like
right, the free-to-play mage that he used several seasons.
He's like, all these cards gain value, and you know that's what it is. So kind of a weird and interesting deck that we're seeing, and it is just crushing this priest.
Oh, how's that for value? Shadow Word Death was just used. Ragnaros doing 8 damage to the face. And Lowelo looks completely powerless to stop this. He needs to heal and get a Shadow Word Death to hope to survive the Ragnaros onslaught. But even then, you're not guaranteed to survive the next turn.
No, I mean, in fact, I don't think that there's any way that he survives. Because he can do this to draw 1 card, but at 5 mana, there's nothing he can draw.
Yeah, if he Shadow Word Death, he doesn't have enough to Shadow Madness and remove damage off the board. That's game 1, just like that.
Wow.
And Mage becoming the surprise X factor right off the bat in the series.
Yeah, and you know, generally speaking, you don't really want to lose with your Priest deck to the Mage deck, but the thing is, it's not like a Burn Mage. This is just like he had a bunch of good minions, and we saw a Kirin Tor and a Secret, but I feel like it didn't really give away that much. It was just like a bunch of good cards that he played.
Yeah, and he was able to play, again, very board-centric and never lose control. And you see how Priest is often a class that can rebound off the board. They have clears, they've got ways to heal and stall, even use your minions against you with Shadow Madness. But at the same time, it just didn't line up correctly. And I think Matthew made also some good intelligent reads. He instead of trying to go for the traditional way to push damage, he said, well, it looks like he doesn't have this, so I can get away with a little bit more, and then ends up making good reads to end the game there.
Well, what deck do you actually bring out here now? He has a Warrior and he has a Shaman. And as soon as I ever think about Shaman against Mage, I get a shiver down my spine. So I'm looking at the Warrior deck is probably what's going to have to come out here.
Yeah, Warrior is good against Mage because you can stack up against the damage really well with its hero power, so I would favor that.
Well, let's take a look. And he actually does choose Shaman. All right, we'll see what he's got in this Shaman deck. We see a Haunted Creeper already. Not completely uncommon.
You know what? I wonder if this is indicative of a Warrior that's playing very late game centric. Maybe he cut a lot of his early game cards so he can't even deal effectively
with
a
super control Warrior.
Right, like super greedy to try and beat. I mean, Warrior is an interesting choice in the metagame because people feel like Paladin can do what it does, but better in the late game. So maybe if you scale back Warrior, or sorry, scale deeper into Warrior, good. That said, of course, Shaman is always a decent pick. But what is this? Do I see on the screen a Wind Fury?
Okay, I think we have an idea of what's going on now. This might be like a kind of combo-y Shaman deck. We did see some OTK Shaman decks for a while there. You know, there was a lot of variations. Quite a long time ago. What was that, like 8 months ago or something?
It was, and I remember players like Chalky was using this plus Leroy and Rockbiters to end the game. But you know, with Wind Fury,
Stranglethorn Tiger sometimes I would see in there.
Just play something with stealth and you get the guarantee. I mean, if you have Shade of Naxxramas in this deck, you just tag Wind Fury across it and it's combo damage. So it's a lot of potential, and it's cool that we see a deck like this in the top 16 of the European regionals.
Well, it totally is. So, looking at this, I think you coin out that Kirin Tor, man. Kirintor into Counterspell, because then you can't even Rock Biter or Lightning Bolt this. You have to have 2 removal spells, and then you have a 3/3 and a 4/3 out on turn 2. I think that's pretty good.
What about maybe the Mana Worm coin into Loot Hoarder, though? Because the next turn you still get the tempo, and use with the spell. And also, let's see, there's not that many spells
and
that you're
he can't
afraid of
remove
your
everything.
opponent.
Like,
Right.
I guess he could use like a Lightning Bolt plus his Spider, something like that. Yeah, I think that's a really good play as well.
Well, it's an alternative. At the same time, it does set yourself up more to Lightning Storm. So I can understand if you don't want to make yourself susceptible to that, you pass on that.
Well, it looks like he does go with the original idea there, and does go to face with a little bit of damage. With that counter spell, he's only going to be able to use a little bit here. I wonder if he can guess that that's a counter spell, because looking at that, I would say 100% that is not a mirror entity.
Right.
This has to be a duplicate or a counter spell. Or, I mean, I guess it could be something else like an ice block, but maybe not as common in a deck.
Yeah, that
like
is
this.
interesting.
Because I'm just wondering if, like, do you have enough intel to use an Earth Shock here?
Well, clearly he does.
Wow.
And
that's a good
Earth
play.
Shock gets denied, and then now the Lightning Bolt and Rock Biter can go for the clears. So, a risk that Lowelo take pays off in spades, and now he has a free board.
That was, like, a really good play. That was really, really well done. I think he read that situation perfectly.
It's hard to make that call, too.
Yeah.
If you misstep, you just use an Earth Shock on a 1-mana minion that didn't die.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
Like, oh,
right.
I guess this is going to clear up my spider.
This is awkward.
Wow. Good on him for that move.
Okay, but at the same time, Shaman is low on cards. Now, this is a struggle that they face with almost every matchup. They just spent 3 cards with 3 mana, and he's almost in top deck mode from this point on to try to refill his hand.
It's pretty early in the game, and the truth of the matter is, look at that Wind Fury.
It's gonna be
you don't count that as a card.
Yeah.
That's nothing. Like, he's got 1 card in his hand realistically for the next several turns. That Wind Fury does not become useful for a long time.
All right, well, he's picking up some of the better minions in his deck. Fire Elemental, one of the highest value minions in the entire game. Hearthstone.
It certainly is. Does get to take out this Loot Hoarder. Not really the most exciting cards here.
No, everything has low impact. Fireball doesn't do much. The Harvest Golem makes you susceptible to what your opponent has on board. And then Mirror Entity, of course, well, your opponent's overloaded. He's not going to be playing much. And it barely buffs your Mana Worm.
Yeah. I think I would play the Harvest Golem because he's overloaded right now. So if he plays a minion, it's going to be a crappy one the next turn. So that's not going to get you any value. In fact, it might suck. Whereas if you wait 1 extra turn, you can get something like a Fire Elemental off of it.
Yeah, what I like most about Harvest Golem is that it's true to your game plan. You're trying to fight back for the board. You know, Shaman might get its healing totems and give you a bad time, but you know, Harvest Golem is your best bet to have something stick. And of course, in the case where he lets it stick, like he ignores your Harvest Golem, it might give you an opportunity to use your hero power to get some favorable trades.
We'll see how that works out for him. What do you think about this move? I don't like it. I don't think he should attack anything here.
That is optimistic. I mean, good on you, Mana Worm. When you were raised with a with a very take charge mother to try and seize opportunity when you see it, but I don't know, like attacking it when the Shaman can easily just roll a healing totem, make your damage worthless.
Yeah, and you know, at a mana lock like this, totem is very likely to happen this turn.
Right. I understand the logic, though. You shut down the opportunity for your opponent to kill off the Harvest Golem easily, but Lowelo actually drew away anyways. He has this Flame Tongue totem.
Well, do you play the Flame Tongue totem? Because you can clearly clear things, but the Flame Tongue totem is going to be in kind of an awkward place if you do it like this. And actually, because of the Flame Tongue totem, that made that Mana Worm play actually a lot better. When you think about it.
Slightly awkward.
Well, actually, I guess he dealt with that just fine, but... This is not like the set of plays that I expect over the last 2 turns.
No, it's a little awkward, and that's kind of what Secret Mage does a lot of times. It's board states are always unconventional because of it.
Well, I think the Mirror Entity Ping the Wolf is about as good as you can get here. The Water Elemental, like, you could play the Water Elemental, but, you know, there's one card that's been in that hand a long time that could very easily be something like a Hex.
Right, you lose momentum on board.
Whereas Mirror Entity, you know, you're coming into this big mana turn for your opponent. He's not overloaded. I think this is very solid because I would really expect a Fire Elemental, but that's a good draw.
Yeah, absolutely. You know that your opponent's deck is filled with a lot of mid-range creatures where that 3 damage on the Fire Elemental can be great. At the same time, he's calculating the possibility of using Wind Fury on the next couple of turns to potentially lethal his opponent. Because think about it, if the Fire Elemental somehow slides in and gets that buff from the Flame Tongue Totem, that's 16 damage.
It's a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage. I wasn't great at math, Artosis, in school at least, but 16...
I know that 16 is a lot in a game with 30 life.
Absolutely.
Now, I really like where he put that. That was really... He's actually reading this game extremely well.
Yep.
And so is... Well, actually, it's Lowelo, really, that I was talking about earlier as well with that Earth Shock. I think...
He made some really strong reads
he's
around
stepping it up with this Shaman deck.
Secrets are hard to play around.
Yeah, especially
it's
Mage
difficult
Secrets.
to play around all of them, and he's made the right guesses and he's played around them successfully, and his board is looking honestly pretty decent.
Playing around Secrets is kind of a funny concept, Frodan, when you say that, because I think about it, I'm like, well, you don't play around Hunter Secrets, you just play into them because they're going to hurt. That's just it. They're good.
Just bite the lip and
Mage, so yeah, you can definitely play around Mage Secrets like that. He's done a very good job with that so far.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's why he kept the Fire Elemental, and now he can collect the value off of it.
Yes, he certainly can. It's, you know, it kind of sucks he has to throw this 4/3 away. But, I mean, other than... No, that's the only play here.
Yeah.
Because there's no secret out. Like, the Lightning Storm doesn't really make sense. His board becomes so much weaker.
Well...
And he still loses the same card, and he gets overloaded a bit.
If he rolls high on the Lightning Storm, he can trade in his Spell Power Totem, and then get actually a 5/4 Unbound Elemental.
That's right, and another Totem. Okay, that's... I mean, you are right. If he rolls high, that's pretty sick.
He still has the mana to do Fire Elemental. I think this is what he's thinking about, but at the same time, it's almost hard to pass up an ability to establish a board like this. I think he's also calculating whether or not his opponent might have the possibility of things like Flame Strike the next couple turns, has it affect his board, etc.
Yeah, you always have to worry about that Flame Strike as we hit 7 mana, that's for sure. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that can't possibly have been right? Like, it just would have been a better play to deal 1 less damage and have a 2/2 Spell Power Totem out. That was definitely a bit of a misplay.
Well, you know, I'm trying to justify and rationalize it, but I kind of lean towards this. I don't understand why you'd want to give away your board. As a Shaman player, that's pretty much your doctrine. It's board or bust.
Yeah. No, I think no matter how we look at that, there's no way to put that in a positive light. That was a bit of a misplay.
Okay. Well, you know, gets the taunt totems, so it's not like the totems are mad at him at all.
Maybe they should be, though.
It is totems versus golems.
Would you play Rag here?
Movie waiting. Would I play Rag here?
Thing is, I would be expecting like a Hex. No one draws Hex today, by the way. We've casted a decent amount of Shaman games, and Hexes are just all at the bottom of the decks today. Either that, or this is the new Shaman meta, is you don't put Hex in your deck. Like, no, I don't want to have another taunt.
I wouldn't believe that even if Strifeco did it, and he's the guy who put 1 Lightning Storm in his deck.
Yeah. I always feel gross when I'm net decking something with 1 Lightning Storm.
I think you're okay, because the most important thing to consider is if your opponent does have Hex, will I be in a position where my board is unrecoverable? I don't think it is, but instead he's using Fireball on a Mana Tide Totem, and now Shaman's going to climb so far ahead in the card count because of Azure Drake.
Azure Drake is going to be pretty awesome here. I kind of liked the Rag play just because he would have taken out the Taunt Totem, and both the other totems are so valuable. But,
that is true.
You know, at least he did get rid of that Mana Tide, which can really get out of control. You leave Mana Tide out like 1 extra turn, and it can cost you the game. Yeah. I know it's happening.
Pick your poison, honestly, for the card, like the card deficit that you're struggling with as mage. And we've said this before. You need cards like Arcane Intellect and Duplicate, even to the point where some mages feel like keeping Arcane Intellect in their opening hand because they know that they're more likely to spend a lot of their resources early without a draw engine.
It's very interesting that you say that because I've definitely found that to be the case as well. Like you run out of steam. Sometimes you get a great hand and it all works out with like Duplicate and your loot hoarders hit and just everything goes right, but very often it looks just like this, where your opponent has 3 or 4 more cards, and you're just sitting there, and your cards are all powerful, but you're not getting anything to happen.
After much debate, Lowelo chooses to Lightning Storm. I think it's for the better. As much as you're sad at losing your Flame Tongue, you have Flame Tongue #2. How many adjacent buffs do you really need on the currency of your board? I think you're okay with this.
Well, right now, question is to rag or not to rag, because he can counterspell and kill off this totem, or he can just rag and cross his fingers.
Rag has such a potential to backfire. If it hits the face, that's not what you want. You already used fireballs, and the fact that there's
it's
like a 6 attack, can completely go the opposite direction. Counterspell at the same time, they'll lose so much tempo. You haven't used 4 of your mana crystals.
Yeah. It's rough, man. And you're playing with like a Harvest Golem in this. Oh man.
Well, I guess he did make the right call, but at the same time, it comes to question, what would have been if Rag dropped a few turns earlier? It's a little difficult because we have the ability of seeing everything.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited to see some more of the Shaman cards in this deck, by the way, because when you see this Wind Fury, I'm like, is he playing a Stranglethorn? Is he playing Shade of Naxxramas?
I have to think it's Shade of Naxxramas.
That's my guess, yeah.
Right. Most classes can't deal with it that effectively.
Still. Could be an Arcane Golem, who knows? Could be a Stone Tusk 4.
Stone Tusk 4.
Like, no, he would just use Bluegill Warrior. I'm like, of course, yeah, you're right.
I mean, it is 1 mana, and you put 2 Flame Tongues and 2 Rock Biters. I mean,
and give it Wind Fury?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you...
that's 22 damage.
Then you reincarnate it. Yeah. That's lethal, Frodan. That's lethal.
You have the mana to do that. I don't know. Speaking of not having the mana, Matthew's been struggling for a couple turns now, trying to do everything. Rag's just been sitting here, but now we know that it's a little bit too late, and he knows the answer to the. Oh, but he does have Counterspell.
Yeah, the Counterspell should be able to keep this 3/6 alive. I think. Thing is, with that out. I think this turn... Oh, Haunted Creeper is a definite play, in case this is a mirror entity, I would say. You got to test for that, and if it's not, it's probably Counterspell.
Right.
In which case, I would consider throwing away the Wind Fury at this point. That card has just been dead, and do you need it with this type of card advantage?
It makes for a flashy ending, that's for sure. I mean, Lowelo's going for the Twitter fans at this point.
Well, that's a great trade.
Absolutely. This Azure Drake's already gotten so much card advantage. Now he sees that it's not mirror entity, so he's well aware that it's most likely going to be the counter spell because he killed off the Drake, or he killed off the Water Elemental no duplicate.
Oh,
well,
a Flame Strike. That is not a bad draw right now. The question is, do you do it this turn?
4 damage on the board, or 5 damage rather, is not that imposing, but
it's not. The thing is, Rag is about the worst play in the universe right now.
Yeah.
If he did it, I would not even blame him. He has 2 options.
And he has Counterspell.
Yeah.
So even if his opponent hexed, it's not like Rag could die at this point.
So, you know what, when you say it like that, it's the Flame Strike is going to clear things. Oh, man.
Oh, he's got ways to get through this Rag.
I guess this is what happens when you wait.
But unfortunately, if he plays Feral Spirits, it will get Counterspelled. So even then, Rag's not protected. In fact, if Lowell thinks it's Counterspell, he's just going to give up that Wind Fury. How meta is this? To Wind Fury a 1/1 to play around Counterspell?
I think a Wind Fury Spectral Spider is exactly what this tournament needs right now.
That's the same as Wind Fury a Stone Tusk 4.
I think it's pretty awesome. I've never seen one of those with Wind Fury. And it's a gold one too. I mean, this is a great.
Wind Fury is a great
opportunity.
Hero power. That's what it is.
You could Wind Fury the totem, but I think that's pretty wasteful.
You can't win. It can't even attack if it's 0-2, right? You just give it Wind Fury, nothing else.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. You have to wait for an enabler of some sort, like a Defender Vargas, perhaps.
Wow.
I'm very surprised he tested with a Hex there. But
he wants to keep Wind Fury as a win condition, and he calls it correctly, but you know what? He aimed at a 0-2. Now I see why healing totems are depressed. See what they have to go through? They always die.
Like, oh, I can't even be a frog. Well, the Undertaker's not a good draw at this point, and I'm starting to question what are the cards in this mage deck. If you think about the cards that we've seen so far, right? Yeah, he has a good amount of Death Rattle minions, and then he has Counterspells, Kirin Tors. What other secrets did we see?
Counterspell, most likely Duplicate, I want to say.
Yeah, I would say duplicates, but we haven't seen a single one drawn yet, unfortunately.
Right, and this is a call that that Matthew makes because he saw Hex being used, but of course we know Lowelo kept Hex in his back pocket specifically for an opportunity like this.
Yeah, when you see someone aim a Hex at their own totem to play Wolves, I think you can safely say there's another Hex in hand, but he doesn't have any other options. What, are you going to ping plus Undertaker against someone who has a Spell Power totem? I mean, not a Spell Power, but a Healing totem? It's pretty tough. Oh, man.
And this is the drawback of Undertaker. It's a very sharp decline in its value in the late stage of the game. A lot of people complain about the start that Undertaker has because it's so strong. It just continues to snowball its stats. But at the same time, in the late game, it's just drawbacks. Similar to Innervate, right? Innervate as a top deck or a draw rather late stage of the game is one of the worst you can get.
That's the thing about cards that are great in the early game. Argent Squire, Undertaker, Innervate. These cards are pretty weak later on. That's being
shown quite clearly. Suppose you ping the 2-3. Ping to the face actually has no impact whatsoever at the moment.
No, not really. But this game has gone a long time. Imagine if he had pinged every turn. It'd be pretty low.
Yeah, he'd be... I don't know. Like, I don't think Matthew has another choice.
Yeah, I think you just ping a wolf.
He's going through all the permutations of possible attacks that the wolf would get an optimal trade, but I think it's a lot simpler to the fact that you're restricted in your plays.
You do, yeah.
Lightning
Why
Storm.
not?
You are still vulnerable to Flame Strike, but he's already showed one, and it's not exact common practice to see two.
I would say, especially when you consider some of the other cards that we've seen in this deck, right? I'm like looking at a bunch of Harvest Golems. I'm seeing an Undertaker and Haunted Creepers here. Right. Would that ever have two Flame Strikes?
You know, you never know. This is a tournament
it's
setting.
Definitely a possibility.
You don't expect two BGH. That's in a Druid deck, right?
Yeah, I think it would.
That's every reason sometimes to bring it.
Yeah. All right, so everything is cleared. We are in top deck mode for this mage right now. And there is not a card he could draw that would make me think he's in a good spot.
Well, you know what? One Haunted Creeper and Undertaker couldn't do it. I've got bad news for this spider.
Yeah. This spider is not going to do very much.
Yeah. I think that Scream is foreshadowing of what's to come. At least that's what is in Shaman's arsenal right now. He's got 10 damage at the moment. No, a little bit more with Defender Vargas. He's got...
Yeah, you could Wind Fury with that Defender on there.
Wait.
It's 8, 11, 12, 13.
13 damage.
Yeah. So roll a healing totem. That's the play.
That's the play.
That's the play.
Just do it. Summon all the skill you got. Oh,
you can't even get it.
Yeah, Lowelo got outplayed there.
He's being very careful about this, by the way.
Yeah, you know, I'm surprised that he's buffing the Taunters a little bit more instead of perhaps making his minion more resilient to Flame Strike. But at this stage, he realizes he's such a dominant position that 3 damage is the magic number anyways, and there's nothing that Matthew can do. He gets Frostbolt, which isn't nearly enough, and Game 2 will go to Lowelo.
All right. We're on track to hit Game 5 once again, Frodan. I am hoping for it. And that mage deck just got completely slammed there. Kind of an interesting mage deck. I'm not exactly sure what its true aim is, but
well, I feel like it's similar to the Tempo Priest in a way. If you have, or you know what, let's just expand it to Undertaker package anything, whether it's Hunter, whether it's Mage, whether it's Priest, where if you don't get the right cards to start things off and it's very slow, you can't protect the board. Unfortunately, you're going to get these cards late game where they don't have high impact. In fact, Druid, the fast token Druid that people use, is also a victim to this exact situation. So, unfortunate that that Lowelo was able to get everything on the board for Shaman, which is part of its win condition, and Matthew couldn't get anything.
Well, it's Shaman right now. I'm guessing because he banned Mage that the Warlock is a handlock deck and not a Zoo. And even if it was a Zoo, you might not want to play it against Lightning Storms. I'm thinking we're going to see the Rogue here.
Yeah, Miracle Rogue is still very potent. And some people even opt to play Leroy still, like number guy, which still baffled me a little bit.
Hey, man.
But it
is Leroy. Leroy with 1 Shadow Step kills you almost as often as Leroy with 2.
You still have the 9 mana with Cold Blood to do 16 damage. Game 3 is about to begin, so let's jump to the board and see what these guys have prepared for this match. What will Matthew choose, whether it's Rogue or Warlock? We're leaning towards Rogue.
And we were right, it is Rogue, and with those double preps, it does look like it's going to be a Miracle Rogue.
Okay, now, what kind of Miracle Rogue is it?
I don't know.
Because it's continued to evolve to the point where now you can see, Alex Straza in your Miracle deck. You can, of course, people have fun with Malygos, not really sure how competitively viable it is. You also see Violet Teachers, very board-centric, and then you see Super Aggression, where they throw in Arcane Golems, a couple of other Chargers, and it's like a fusion between the turn 6 rogues that you see quite often in Asia and the Miracle.
Yeah, there's quite a wide range that you can do right now, and I think that it hasn't really, fixed itself. We don't actually know what is the best one right now. A lot of players are really working on that, and looking at it so far, those are all cards you would expect to see in basically any Miracle Rogue deck, so we're not exactly sure at the moment.
All right, well, you can at least agree that if you're the Shaman player, you're expecting your opponent to draw a lot of cards. That's why, especially with Concealed Gadgets, and your only hope is oftentimes the Spell Power Totem plus a Lightning Storm. That is reaching. That's the best case scenario for you.
That's pretty tough.
How else can you kill it?
Double Lightning Storm. Of course. It's only Overload 4.
Yeah, and you'll have 3 mana next turn to hex whatever comes out.
Yeah, and in fact, maybe you can coin into it. So,
That's true. I wish I had your optimism when I play Hearthstone, Artosis.
Don't worry, it leaves me really quick when none of my bad ideas work out. Well, no really great play here.
Okay, this is a very optimistic move, hoping that your opponent doesn't have a way to buff. Because now if you play Feral Spirits, this becomes a 3/4. You just took 2 extra damage. I'm not exactly sure about this.
Do you play Feral Spirits here? Because let's say he does Feral Spirits. It's Blade Fury could do something. I think I would, though. I feel like... you could do like a Lightning Bolt to the face, but as you said, that was very optimistic. This tells him that there is a deadly poison in hand.
Right.
Like, without any doubt in the whole universe, there is a deadly poison in that hand. The only other thing he could think is that he's preparing it to make sure it only has 4 health to use and eviscerate for the next turn. That's the only other thing it could be. So,
yeah, I'm not sure, because with 4 mana, it's a very specific set, an important turn, as Leroy is drawn here.
Yeah.
Miracle Rogues often have either Gnomish Inventor or Deadly Poison plus 3 drop, and it's oftentimes SI7 agent. So in fact, you gave up more of your board. You have a weaker version of a minion. You still have your mana intact, which is nice, but it's still difficult to address what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the way that went down, but hey, you know what? Right now, the Rogue looking pretty good, and it is interesting to know that Leroy is in here as well.
Yes. So it's a
this could just be a list that he was using 3 days ago. He's like, 1 mana, who cares? It's still such a good deck.
Maybe Matthew didn't even know Leroy's getting, oh, what? It's costing 5 mana.
He's looking at it right now. He's like, oh my god, there's a new patch.
All right, well, taking care of this SI7 agent with Lightning Bolt seems preferable. You have the opportunity to use Feral Spirits, but then your next turn is going to be overloaded for 3, and you're forced to drop Haunted Creeper / Totem up, and that means you essentially pass if your opponent has the ability to deal with the board.
Yeah, that would be kind of weak. Now, unfortunately for him as well, there is a Blade Fury. Do you think we're going to see that here?
Let's see. Well, it depends on what he draws, but I feel like it's his best course of action.
Yeah.
Although, there is something to be said for Lotheb. Oh, but he drew Eviscerate, so now he can actually clear everything. Okay.
Well, he could use Blade Fury and then just dagger up and hit the...
That is also true.
Hit the 1 health elemental. I think that's a bit better. But, I mean, his life is actually pretty surprisingly low here after that move.
And you have to be careful. The burst, and you did see Wind Fury from your opponent. I mean,
yeah.
You know your opponent's a very combo-centric shaman.
You know he's willing to cast it on, you know, Haunted Creepers even, if that means a victory.
The situation calls for it. Well, Conceal Gadgetzan about to pop down, and the Earthring Farseer is in hand, so it does give some options for Matthew to survive whatever burst comes out.
Yeah, and let's not forget as well that he does have Leroy, which means Shadow Steps are in here. And with those Shadow Steps, or they're probably in here. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but if there are Shadow Steps, he can gain a lot of life.
I would be very surprised if there were no Shadow Steps.
Yeah, that would be very weird. That would certainly... I think you'd play Arcane Golem maybe over Leroy in a case like that. But
now, this is important. The Lotheb to shut down the Gadgetzan Auctioneer is the best play you can make in this scenario. It's the one tool that warriors, shamans, paladins, when they're susceptible to Gadgetzan plays, that's their ability to address the situation.
Well, you know, I guess he's got a couple options here. It's looking like I think he's considering running Leroy into it. I think that might be a consideration that he's doing, but the thing is, going into turn 6, that doesn't make sense because the odds of a Fire Elemental or something like that to help the Haunted Creeper finish him off, a little bit too high. You know, it could be any number of cards, so...
Might just answer Lotheb with Lotheb and push, but the problem is you're at 15 health.
Yeah, it's getting very scary with Wind Fury. In fact, that's 6, 12... you can deal 14 that I can see if he just pushes.
Yeah, I think Lotheb is a much stronger answer. More than likely, the Lotheb will attack the Gadgetzan Auctioneer because he can't do anything spell-wise, and then from there you can respond and potentially piece together damage because you have Leroy.
Well, let's see what he draws. Okay. You know...
Are we going
to see a Defender Vargas here? I almost want to see him do the Wind Fury to take out both the minions, but...
Yeah, you know, that's actually not bad, but it does take up your entire turn.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with a 1-2 versus...
No, it's not the strongest board that you could hope for, that's for sure.
Fire Elemental gives you the ability to clear anyways, and you have a 6-5 with 2 1/1s.
Yeah, that's a much better play. Oh my god, why was he talking before?
Now you're still in trouble if you're the Miracle Rogue. Well, until you draw that.
The thing is, I mean, he can like start clearing this stuff, but he has nothing to draw with in his hand. It's, you know, best case scenario at the end of this turn, he's going to have an Earthring Farseer on the board. That's like not the place you want to be in as the Miracle Rogue. Especially when we just see nothing here that draws. You know, there's not a Shiv, there's not a Fan of Knives, there's not an Azure Drake. There's obviously not a Gadgetzan. Like, he needs to draw into way more. His opponent's still at 21. He needs a lot more than what's in his hand to finish this game off.
Yeah, and the problem is you can't ignore the minions here. There's just, you know your opponent is very keen on using minions existing on the board to burst. It's not from the hand like Doomhammer and Alakir. It's on the board because Wind Fury needs to go on a minion that already doesn't have the summoning sickness. So, he pays 6 life to kill it off. That is painful.
That certainly is.
But I feel like it's something you got to do.
You know what? I guess what he's doing here is he's saying, I want to win this game. I need to draw a Gadgetzan, and I need to use these cheaper spells.
We need to save them for situations that will call for it. In the meantime... his opponent will have an ability to respond. He's got Argus, he's got ways to push for damage. He also has Azure Drake and see what he draws with the opportunity to clear.
Yeah. I mean...
seems like that's the more the more robust option. The problem is, I like collecting Defender of Argus value when I can, as the Shaman player. You have two of them in hand. They're getting kind of clunky.
They're definitely getting clunky at this point. I agree with you completely there.
Pays off, though. Look at that. Lightning
Bolt.
Draw. Absolutely.
Would definitely be using that over the Lightning Storm in this case.
Yep.
Well, let's see what our rogue draws here.
This is the last turn, I feel like, where Gadgetzan can bring him back.
And that is a sap.
Oh, and...
He's definitely sapping this Azure, but that's like one of the weaker sap targets, I guess.
Yeah.
It buys him a turn, though. Because he would have had lethal very easily.
I suppose. It does give your opponent just more ammo, though. At the same time, it keeps you survive, but for how long?
Yeah, not very long, that's for sure. Kind of drawn dead at this point. Thing is, even if that Gadgetzan had lived another turn, would it have done enough? His draws have just not quite been there.
It's tough to say. Guess Lotheb is pretty effective after all.
Yeah, he's a good card.
I
think there's a reason why we see him in almost every deck.
Well, Matthew feels pretty helpless. I don't blame him. In fact, I don't know what he can do, short of just trying to remove this Azure Drake and wait. But like we said, this was probably the last opportunity to, because we know that Lowelo will start drawing into other... He still has Alec here in this deck, right? He still has other ways to burst beyond just Wind Fury.
That is very true.
It's easy just to die from this position. He's at 9 health.
Well, let's see what he draws. Definitely not a needed card right there. I feel like I would definitely consider playing a Defender here. If you just slow your opponent down a little bit more, he's just not going to be able to have any gas left to finish you.
Now here's where, in the previous patch, you start being a little worried, because it's, well, is he saving like a big burst combo? Does he have like 2 Shadow Steps and just needs his Leroy? But we know it's not possible any longer with the restrictions on the mana.
Yeah.
So this makes Lowelo feel a lot safer. Doesn't have to play
true.
Defender of Argus, because he's like, well, I got it.
That's well said, Frodan.
Okay, well, now there's a glimmer of hope.
Yes, there is. There certainly is. I mean, he's going to have to deal with this Azure. I think it's probably going to be Gadgetzan to use the backstab to begin.
Absolutely. You still can draw into Fan of Knives with some spell power. Preparation is good. All right.
Yeah, he's got that full dagger as well.
The dream is alive, Artosis.
It certainly is.
Ooh, that's not...
that's not going to... He doesn't have time to use that card.
There we go, Fan of Knives.
Oh, that's a nice draw right there. I really like that, actually.
Absolutely. Maybe a Shiv of some kind?
That's not a Shiv. Hold on, one more.
Cold Blood is something.
Is it something that you want to use here? Do you have to sap this 4/1?
The problem is sapping restricts your mana even more, so if you pick up second SI7 agent, then you're gonna be you couldn't use it. So this is an opportunity to kill off the board, and now you push for damage. This was a good combination of draws, but is it too late, Artosis?
Well, we will see. He actually takes out the Spell Power Totem. That makes a lot of sense. He hasn't seen Lightning Storm, so definitely something to have to worry about.
So you can kill off this Gadgetzan as you choose to do it while establishing his board.
He deals 6 damage right now, not quite enough. Well, obviously he's going to take care of that. So.
Yeah, so if you can't kill, the Gadgetzan is the high priority. And then from there, after you use Fire Elemental or Shock, I suppose you just play the Mana Tide, draw another card. You have Wind Fury already.
Yeah, and as you were saying before, like...
Air Shock the 4/4, or sorry, becomes a 4/3. Not too much different than a 3/3.
No, that's true. Okay, okay. And this kind of lines up with what you were saying before. You know, just the mana restrictions that exist now for Miracle Rogue with that 1 additional mana.
Although I'm confused because he just left up a 4/3 instead of a 3/3. So I feel like that's strictly worse. Because he just could have Earth Shocked and killed off versus 3/3. I guess there's less Shadow Step potential, but that's I don't know if that's exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah, if you're using Shadow Step on an SI7 agent against a 21 health Shaman that has you dead the second you don't clear his board, that's probably not...
You're not playing Miracle right.
Yeah.
Doing it wrong.
You're definitely doing it a bit wrong. Ascension. I was not expecting to see this card in here.
That's cool.
Yeah, we definitely see...
Okay, there's a chance.
There is.
But there is Rock Biter and Wind Fury, so that's 6 damage. You can Defender it down. But that one Senjin, such a problematic card.
This is so crazy.
I'm trying to see if I can spot lethal here. But I don't think there's an opportunity.
Those fine lethal puzzles. No, this is, I don't think that there's any, there's definitely not any lethal here, no.
So then from here, let's see, can you go for a board clear with Lightning Storms?
Man, dude, if Matthew wins this one, Lowelo is going to feel really bad.
Oh, absolutely.
There was like a lot of
There's an opportunity to push for damage with Defender of Argus and Wind Fury on a small creature, and then force your opponent to use things like Deadly Poison to attack into face in order to, to trade its health and not attack face. So this line of play, I think he would regret heavily if it ends up going in Matthew's favor.
Okay, he wants to take this one out. Okay, not bad. He's seen both saps already.
Yeah, that's true.
He's seen at least one of
this. This is the last turn that Matthew can win.
Shiv isn't the card he's looking for.
No.
But I think you throw that down on this this totem. This taunt totem.
I'm trying to think of a specific set of cards that can allow him to win, but even if he gets through...
Well, the thing is, this only draws one card. He has no draw engine, so like he needs to win with a card that he's about to draw.
Shadow Step?
Which Inventor? That's not it. Okay, I think... God, do you give up your Leroy here? I think you actually might. You might give up your
Just
Leroy.
To keep the Van Cleef and
but do you Gnomish?
healthy?
Or do you Assassin's Blade to put on some extra damage?
Well, either way, you're only playing one of these cards in your hand. You can't play two. I think Leroy as removal is actually not that bad here. You're right. But then it does make Shadow Step kind of a dead draw.
Yeah, well, Shadow Step now can win if he doesn't die here. Now, unfortunately...
Yeah, I don't think it... And Flame Tongue certainly settles it here, because now you can drop Alec here plus the Flame Tongue. So, it looks like Lowelo's going to use a Shaman deck to get 2 wins in a row. Well done.
Wow, okay. So that actually got a lot closer than we thought it was going to for the entire time. He almost miracled right out of that.
Right.
Wow.
Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends on how you look at it, the Leroy mana cost didn't actually affect the game whatsoever. Because there was no Shadow Steps to be had, and Leroy just kind of sat there.
And he never did get into... with no Shadow Steps. Maybe Frodan. There's no Shadow Steps.
Actually, it's a very big possibility. There's only a few cards left in the deck. And perhaps he went more of a double Cold Blood, double Conceal approach, and just used Leroy solely as a charger with damage.
Yeah.
Like Cold Blood.
It could be. I mean, 5 mana for 6 charge damage. That is still the highest for cheap, I guess, in the game, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
3 for 4 with an Arcane or that. All right, so that brings us down to his Warrior deck. Now, Warrior against Miracle.
Well, I believe the Warlock deck, because he goes to Shaman 1.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So now we have Warlock versus the Shaman.
I keep doing that, too. I'm like talking about one deck. I'm like, that must be the deck that won, because I was talking about it.
I know it's been a long day. But I believe the game is about to begin, though. Yeah. So let's talk about how Warlock faces off against Shaman. And we suspect it's Handlock, because he's been avoiding playing Warlock early.
Well, all right. So Shaman going up against Handlock. I think you're going to mulligan pretty aggressively for your spells here.
Yeah, I think you want the Earthshock and Hex.
Yeah,
Unbound is pretty decent to keep early, but I feel like you want those other removal spells.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it could be a Zoo deck.
Oh, you're right.
You never know. And if it's a Zoo deck,
you're absolutely right.
You definitely want something like an an Unbound, or, well, I guess what you really want is Lightning Storm, right? So the Lightning Bolt,
man.
you know, against, if I'm like playing on the ladder right now, and I have no idea if this is Zoo or Handlock, I think I'd probably throw both Fire Elementals back. I'd be like, well, you know, if it's Zoo, I might need this Unbound. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you bring up excellent points. And most likely, you're not going to use the coin to curb out Fire Elemental. You're using the coin to have the ability to like Unbound coin Lightning Bolt if it's Zoo. But we know it's not, of course.
God, the thing is, I feel like right now Handlock is just such a good choice that I wouldn't mind if he just pure mulligan for anti-Handlock cards, you know, but he doesn't. And there is a Twilight Drake in hand, so if he doesn't get into an Earthshock, there it is.
Ooh, well,
good card.
Good position for Lowelo, but he picks up immediately with a Mountain Giant, and with that Mountain Giant, it almost dictates completely that he's going to be tapping. There is a case to be made that as the Handlock player, you want to establish the board. What? He drew Hex? Hex and Earthshock to answer the Twilight Drake and Mountain Giant?
Hey, man. This is how it goes sometimes. Well, that's a shame.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
All right, well, I keep getting my thoughts interrupted by the fact that these hands keep improving dramatically. Just who can get better draws. If you didn't draw this Mountain Giant, you develop the Ancient Watcher. Because that's your ability to fight back for the board, because there's nothing that can challenge it early on from Shaman.
You know, I think I throw the Twilight Drake down immediately, because the longer you wait,
the likelier that they have to.
Yeah. And I want my hand well, if I don't have the Mountain Giant, yeah, I think I go for the bigger Twilight Drake a little bit quicker, personally.
Ooh. Okay, well, Matthew ends up losing the Ancient Watcher, which is more painful than you think. Big Game Hunter would have been the optimal discard because there aren't many targets.
Yeah, yeah. Has to be like a Fire Elemental next to a Totem.
And he loses one of his best Shadow Flame targets.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I guess that's that for that turn.
Yeah, I feel like saving your coin still gives you more flexibility, like coin with the Lightning Bolt on the Azure Drake to give that 4 damage.
Absolutely.
I think it's more important to save it.
Completely agreed there.
All right. So you're a Handlock. You're a little bit depressed, but at the same time, you still have your Drakes. Still got your boys.
Well, you have your Drake just for a moment.
Until some bad weather comes here.
Do you play the Drake here? I don't think you play Lotheb, just because I look at this, I'm like, well, there's already a Taunt Totem there. What is Lotheb really doing for you? Like, is he going to be a Totem remover? Is that what he is? Is that his new job?
What I like about Lotheb is it'll finally stick something to the board. So that way, because the problem with Twilight Drake is that if it gets Earthshock, your opponent has 4 mana to play with something else. And then he's able to use whatever, like Coin Azure Drake.
That's true. He still has the coin, because I was going to say, at 4, there's not a lot to do with Shaman. When you have 1 totem on the board, it's like, what are you going to Defender Vargas? You might have a Gnomish Inventor or something. But you're right. If he can coin out the... So,
yep, this is the right play, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You sold me on this.
Well, guess what? He's still going to Azure Drake, but he won't be able to do anything. And now, finally, the strongest minion belongs to Handlock, which now, if he has the luxury of playing Mountain Giant and he gets Hexed, at least he's not going to be super far behind on board to the point where he gets bursted by the Shaman.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, now this is an interesting development, too. Sludge Belcher is also one of the best ways to draw hexes out of your opponent, or at least harass the board.
Well, that guy is the stickiest of all minions. He's got gum in his hair, Frodan.
Not enough peanut butter in the world for that.
No, certainly not.
So then, how about this as an alternative play? Maybe not even Sludge Belcher, but Twilight Drake, silence the 0/2 and kill off the Azure Drake.
Okay, I see.
I'm just giving you lit lines of play to talk about.
I'm trying to think about the Iron Beak and the various things that you want to hit in Shaman with that, and there's not actually that much. Shaman is like...
Pretty much what you see is what you get. Yeah. Just the straight up value of the spells plus the cards.
That's kind of an interesting play. I kind of like that play.
He's hovering over Twilight Drake. I think that's the one he's going to make. Instead of the traditional Giant or Sludge Belcher, you go for Board-centric. Is it just Twilight Drake?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Ooh.
A little bit greedy in a way, I guess, but I guess he does have that Frog Totem, which makes this a little bit more acceptable.
That is true. I like denying the spell power, though, from Shaman. They just benefit off of it so much.
Yeah, the thing is, it's one spell power, so I guess, like, let's say he has Earthshock and he rolls a spell power totem, then suddenly a Lightning Bolt is hellish.
Damage.
And it kills Loatheb, but right now, does that spell power actually do anything for him? Like, I don't see it actually changing any math for a decision, right?
Well, if he gets spell power totem,
yeah.
Ooh, if it did, it was all of a sudden a 1-mana kill command.
Oh God, what is?
Well, Lightning Storm. Yeah. Okay, this makes much more sense.
3 to.
Although I think he wants to kill off
is...
Loatheb.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. Coin Lightning Bolts. Wow.
He's rethinking the move.
Yeah,
now.
I think he miscounted of some kind, and he looks really distraught.
Yeah,
because now he's expending so much of his resources.
He'd go down to 4 mana the next turn.
I think he's got to, though. He's committed to this.
Yeah. I mean, you can't turn around there.
I understand the logic. Lightning Storm is not very useful against a deck like Handlock, unless they're going for the full-out Molten Giants, load up with a bunch of Taunters. But in this scenario, he didn't get good value, and he went, I think, like 2 for 1 in terms of cards overall. Look at his match history bar. He spent so much.
Well, that was it felt like a painful turn, but you know what? He's cleared the board out. He does have a reasonable play for next turn. This is not something that we're likely to see cleared. To see this board completely cleared by the Handlock, well, you know, he's got the 1/1 totem that'll probably stay no matter what. You'd have to have like a Soulfire, a Mortal Coil, and you know a regular play this turn. Hopefully, we've already seen a Watcher go away, so probably not going to see like Watcher plus Shadow Flame. It makes it much more reasonable when you think of it in those terms.
I think taps perfectly fine. Sludge Belcher just annoys. You're expecting your opponent to do something to the Sludge Belcher, and if he sticks, it's the added bonus.
Oh, I would love the Defender here. That's a great play.
Very clean. It's a very clean kill, but it does open you up to Hellfire.
Yeah.
But then when the Hellfire is gone, then Feral Spears become much more powerful.
That's right. Recently, we've actually seen a lot more Handlock decks with 2 Hellfires in it and only 1 Shadow Flame. Kind of interesting development. This is going to be, ooh, that's a bit painful.
Obviously, I think the big game hunter most likely will come down here, but do you feel like there was any kind of justification, just hypothetically,
like
to play Mountain Giant than Hellfire? Yeah.
We've seen already how many of these damage spells actually played by Shaman, right? We've already seen Lightning Storm. True. We've already seen, the Azure Drake go away. We've already seen Lightning Bolt. At least one.
Wow, he taps and he gets an Ancient Watcher to fill out his curve perfectly, so a pretty important moment for Matthew. He's smiling because he's like, that could have been really bad.
Yeah, very true. And actually, his next turn is going to be pretty sick, man. Like he can double Giant without any issue.
The one thing you do want to start looking for, though, is your Shadow Flames, your opportunity to swing back the board. You know Shaman has the ability to just constantly defend themselves with these little annoying things, totems, feral spirits. Lo and behold.
Oh, and a Loatheb going to come down here. Loatheb actually, this turn, really not going to do anything.
Yes.
I can't even imagine a spell that your opponent would want to cast in the next turn, really.
But what's important is he does have a minion that sticks. He has Flame Tongue Totem. And simply picking a Wind Fury.
Yeah, exactly.
He just wins
that's where it becomes very interesting that he's done this. So. Thing is, we actually do not have a Taunt Giver.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Okay, but there are some opportunities you can use the Owl here. Have the ability to drop a Giant, Owl, attack, and heal yourself. That Taunt Totem, man, so annoying.
You could life tap Giant Earthen Ring. That is pretty greedy,
also an
though.
Alternative.
No, I don't like that. Well, Thing is, if he life taps into a Taunt Giver, I would feel so much better with like a Sun Fury right now, you know?
Oh, me too.
Because if after playing that Loatheb, I'd be looking at that and being like, oh my god, if he has Wind Fury, the odds are I'm
be dead.
fairly likely that I can die here. Yeah, we haven't really seen the Flame Tongue Totems.
I do think his strongest line of play is this, though, utilizing the Iron Beak. Doing something. He did show Lightning Storm already. And the reason why this is the strongest, too, is because he still keeps one Giant in hand. Versus playing double Giant would have made him really susceptible to an opportunity for him to die, or to lose the board and then not have a Shadow Flame target.
Totally. Kind of funny if he had one more mana, that would have been game.
Right. Instead, right now, he's just got a second Lightning Storm. And it rolls pretty okay.
Yeah, it's got as good as you can hope for, I guess.
I mean, he can
clear this board and get a couple Feral Spirits out.
Wouldn't mind. Haunted Creeper is also pretty good, too.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is that it seems like Handlocks have weaned more off of the Leroy combination. So, 27 is actually a very good health. Before, like, if you're in the low 20s, even, like, just straight up 20 health, you're still sweating bollocks because you're not sure if they have Leroy power faceless.
Yeah.
But now I don't really believe that a lot of Handlocks are running the Leroy combo.
In this patch, I would really doubt it at this point. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do, 12 damage?
Yeah, maybe with like a Soulfire.
Yeah. No, it's definitely still a lot of burst, but I do like the new decks without that, personally.
Just run Arcane Golem, double power, then go toward damage.
There you go. That sounds like a very consistent deck.
You'd be surprised. In fact, Kalento hit #1 Legend with it.
Kalento has hit #1 Legend with every single deck that exists, and some that don't, so I'm not gonna...
I believe it. All right, Sylvanas is absolutely the strongest play you have here. Your Molten Giants, it's just, once again, too susceptible. Plus, the Flame Tongue Totem, we're able to trade down with it pretty easily.
Well... I think he really wants to save the Flame Tongue with this Alakir. Like, he really wants to get that working. Because that's so easy lethal out of nowhere at all.
But you lose too much by developing everything passively. And then you don't forget that if you leave the strongest minion on the board for Handlock, they always have board clear potential.
Okay, so actually clears one of these minions out. Right. No way for Sylvanas to die too easily.
Sludge Belcher's not bad. How does that kind of fit, though?
Well, it's finally something with Taunt.
So it is. And in the back of your mind, you're just worried about the final two cards that your opponent's been holding, right? Is one of them Wind Fury, or are there burst potentials? At this stage, I think you can eliminate the process of Doomhammer as a potential finisher.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know your opponent does have the capability to kill you.
Well, looks like he's considering the Sludge Belcher here. I think if he plays that, he's probably going to go ahead and drop the Molten Giant as well.
Yeah, Owl the Flame Tongue?
Yeah. I think you have to Owl the Flame Tongue. Like, that thing is just too dangerous.
Absolutely.
Especially with Alakir in the deck, it's just too crazy.
Don't know if positioning actually matters for the Defender Vargas, whether it's on the left or right. Something to think about.
Yeah. Taking a look at this.
Well, this has escalated very quickly on the Shaman side. The board was not looking very intimidating a couple turns ago, but now it's completely ramped up to the point where you're scared of what the Handlock can do. Not to mention, 2/1 Shadow Flame challenges your board.
Yeah, this without that Flame Tongue Totem, this is not nearly as cool.
No.
Because that Sludge Belcher is so much in your way right now. Thing is, even dropping Alakir, we haven't seen a single Siphon Soul. Of course, we can see that there's 2 in his hand, but he's got to keep that in the back of his mind that a lot of people, since this new patch came out, are running double Siphon Soul. It's
more control oriented.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you're more concerned of the board. I mean, Sylvanas, that was a card that was old school handlock because you had the power of overwhelming immediate steal with Shadow Flame capabilities. But now people are reintroducing it because the meta has slowed down.
Oh, we'll see in a...
But the thing is, Alec here doesn't actually do anything. You can't even... You can barely kill off Sledge Belcher. You can't even kill off Sledge Belcher, actually. That's what's hilarious about it. This 5-mana creature stopping the legendary Windlord.
I heard that he was the weakest of the lords in the actual World of Warcraft.
You're asking the wrong dude, man. Nah, I mean, Nimsh is coming in a couple of days. I'm sure he'll answer all your questions, but for now, wrong dude.
I'm not really sure if you could verify this for me, Frodan.
All right. Well, not Azure Drake. Twilight Drake is just another big minion. I think Matthew still wants to dig for a Shadow Flame of some sort. This is just a juicy board.
Yeah, Shadow Flame would be pretty sick right now.
Or a Taunt Giver, like you mentioned. I think it's a tap for sure. But
as far as I can tell, he doesn't have Taunt Givers in this deck. He has gone so deep, and we've seen just so little.
That's true. But I feel like... I mean, Drake and Siphon Soul is also decent, I guess, because your opponent just showed that he couldn't get past your opponent's or your Sledge Belcher. That's also
that's for sure. He showed a lot of weakness not taking out this Sledge Belcher yet.
All right.
What are you gonna Siphon Soul?
Unbound Elemental, I think.
Yeah. I guess that's really the only option here. You're not gonna do it to that 0-3 totem with Silence. And that is a lot of damage going to face.
He is counting the totems of being able to slide in another Flame Tongue, perhaps, and seeing what the trades are, but I think you just can't pass up the damage. And Wind Fury comes in hand, but I think this is a good demonstration of when the people accuse it of a win more card.
Yeah, and you know, I remember back when the Wind Fury decks were first popping out a little bit, like back during the era of the first Seat Story Cup and whatnot.
Absolutely.
It was like a question of, do you want Alec here or do you want Wind Fury? Not both, because they were kind of redundant. You know, they're both the win condition.
Well, that's it. The handlock will even up the series. And once more, Artosis, we go to Game 5 to determine who will advance in their group.
Yeah, that's the way that we do it, man. Okay, so that means that we do finally get to go ahead and see this Warrior deck going up against the Warlock deck. And, you know, Control Warrior, if this is in fact Control Warrior, I mean, let's not count the possibility. There is some slight possibility this could be Face Warrior. I'm really not thinking so, though. That would be kind of a funny deck to bring here.
It would be, but you know, even you had the opportunity to do that one time in a tournament and surprise a lot of people. But I do agree with an analysis of what Colento said in a previous interview during the day. He said these kinds of decks, like the Aggro Warrior, whatever the ability to surprise your opponent, it works once. But there's 15 other players watching your broadcast games right now, and they are being put on red notice that you have a deck like this. So I'm pretty sure it's the Control Warrior. I think what's interesting, though, is the fact that Warrior might be an option that's scaled a lot later in because he doesn't have a super heavy control deck similar to Paladin. Yeah,
it's a very good point, and I think that's probably what this is, and a very heavy control deck coming out of Warrior here.
There's no like Ramp Druid, there's no Paladin, etc.
He has definitely the potential here to kill a handlock deck. I would say, in my opinion, in that matchup, a lot of it comes down to, do you draw your Twilight Drakes early? Because I think that Warrior has to use so much removal on those, then your Giants become more powerful. But we'll have to see what he has in here. Maybe he has BGHs, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he has Black Knight, maybe he doesn't.
Double BGH Druid was a little far-fetched for me to see at first, but I kind of got used to it. What if Lowelo had double BGH Warrior or something equivalent to that?
If he has double BGH Warrior, I'm like, well, I mean, I guess you brought this just to kill Handlock, right? I hope you don't hit anyone using Zoo.
Hey, if it hurts, it works.
Yeah. But, if he has... that could be kind of an interesting thing if he has a BGH in here.
You know what, if you did have double BGH or a BGH? Gara from Tempo Storm told me that he used to play the Thaddeus twins. So that way, when you have...
Oh, that's cute.
When you have Stala come out, you actually BGH your own guy, and like he trades, and then BGH, and you get 11-11.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Just a little fun tidbit. And Warrior is one of those classes that can get away playing
and
with that.
let's not forget, too, if you do play a BGH in Control Warrior, you do have your 2 Cruel Taskmasters. So you can get rid of something like a Loatheb there, 5 mana, and you get 2 minions on the board. So
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some flexibility to it.
Funny stuff.
And look, it's a silence. Cool.
Wow, yeah. So the Spellbreaker is a card that's been introduced a lot more. Kit Kat's told me about Spellbreaker and its flexibility in the current metagame, especially because not only is it good with the death rattles, but you see, paladins becoming more popular in equality, being able to wreck your legendaries. But in the scenario where one being survives, the Spellbreaker is pretty clutch.
Yeah, I like having silences right now. And we actually do see a Draxus, so that's definitely something that can come into play later on.
Tough for Warrior, especially if they use Gromash as premature because you have to.
Yeah,
you might just flat out die to Draxus.
It's so true. It's so true. If you use your Gromash not to kill them with, a play like Draxus after that is like a game winner.
Well, there is no clear play for Matthew on turn 4 yet, so he's going to have to drop something. Now, his option is to pass or drop one of his 2-cost minions here.
I think the Ancient Watcher is okay to drop here.
Yeah, it's that or the Earthring Farseer. Usually, traditionally for hand.
Yeah, I was like, there's not, because I would drop the Earthring absolutely. But
yeah, the problem with Sun Fury is you activate the draw from the 1 attack Acolyte with 3 health. I always don't want to. I want to deny Acolyte value.
Yes,
it's one of the keys to dissecting the Warrior.
It's so true. If they get 2 draws off of it, they're happy. If they get 3, they're ecstatic. So you're really aiming to prevent that. But I mean, I don't see a reason why the Ancient Watcher can't come up.
Wow, coin Ancient Watcher? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fair enough.
And you know what? He's got the Twilight Drake, and that's going to probably draw out an Execute, which is actually the card that you would prefer to use on a Giant.
In the end, this was the same effect as coin life tapping. So it was about the same either way. You just trade the coin in for a card.
Yeah.
So in that, when you look at it that way, I'm perfectly fine with the play. All right, well, I feel like this is your opportunity to set up Unstable Ghoul, because now you have Execute and you have Deathbite, so you have the course of a few turns if your opponent plays really passive to set up an opportunity to get draws while being able to answer whatever minion comes out.
Ooh.
Now this has developed into something interesting, Artosis.
Yes, it has.
You can silence your Ancient Watcher to start doing stuff. You can silence your opponent's Acolyte. You can
I
also
don't like
drop
silencing your Ancient Watcher just because you're going to force 2 draws off Acolyte. I actually like the Twilight, to be honest. What do you think?
No, I like the Twilight too, but it's interesting that other plays open up.
Yeah.
What if...
There's definitely a lot of options here still.
Yeah. The other opportunity is to play it passive. Try to force removal of your opponent. Say you silence the Acolyte and just taunt up.
Yeah, you definitely could make a move like that. Of course, you're only going to want to silence.
I think you miss too much by... It really is about the card draw on this Acolyte, though. Like, as the handlock, you're trying to apply pressure to the board, and the Twilight Drake, by all means, is your most crucial turning point of the game.
Yeah.
If he doesn't have Execute, he just loses, but in this scenario, I think Warrior's going to be in a really good spot.
You know, the only thing I would be afraid of with this, though, is if he gets a Shield Slam, I was going to say. Well, actually, he's not... Oh, this actually makes perfect sense. But
needs to actually attack the Ancient Watcher with this.
Yeah, that was definitely a bit of a misplay there, I would say. Actually, I kind of would have liked him to armor up, attack in with that, and then use the Shield Slam.
He couldn't have enough mana.
6.
He's played Spellbreaker, only 1 mana.
Yeah, no, I'm saying no Spellbreaker.
Oh.
Because wait, how big was the Twilight Drake? I'm trying to remember now.
4/8?
4/8, yeah. So that's 2 plus 6. I kind of would have liked that a little bit. Because the thing is, I find that the Shield Slams can be hard to use. If they hit you one time, you suddenly no longer have Shield Slam potential for the big stuff.
I think keeping Shield Slam, though, improves your flexibility versus Spellbreaker not only kills off the minion, but it's also a body on the board.
That's very true.
But I think there is validity to think about it. All right, so Lowelo, his play once again becomes a little jarbled. You know, Lotheb doesn't really do too much. In fact, Warrior is actually one of the most resistant to Lotheb because they have weapons to play and other stuff. A lot of other classes, they're reliant more on the spells. But Warrior can live a turn without Lotheb, or doing spells, rather.
Yeah, I don't... Like, none of these plays stick out as something fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter what, this Acolyte's going to get another draw. Like, oh, I guess you could silence him, but that's probably not something you're looking to do.
If you didn't do it in the previous turn, there's no point in doing it now because it's already drawn. And in fact, it's gone even better because it kills off your Ironbreed Owl and it drew a card, so you lost in the advantage.
Oh, could be seeing an execute here. We'll see, though.
Well, the Death Spite's not bad either. Oh, especially when you have the Armor Smith, so Death Spite's excellent here.
Yeah, I mean, he does have the Shield Slam in hand, but he knows right now, based on the plays he's seen, there's like not another Twilight Drake, there's not a Mountain Giant. He doesn't need to worry about his armor count right now.
What I like about this play is you need to develop the weapons. You have 3 in your hand.
Yeah,
you need
that's
to start
very
getting
true.
it out. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting dead for a while. Ooh, you're always afraid of Shadow Flame or Silence.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, not killing off the Ancient Watcher might be the wrong play.
Yeah. I really would have liked to see him do that, to kill that off. Maybe a little bit greedy here.
All depends. Did the draw change the play at all for Matthew? Don't believe so.
And none of his plays look fantastic. It's so weird. Yeah. It's got like all of his taunt givers now. And just these really late game cards like Jiraxis, so. I think he probably life taps into Shadow Flame. I don't really... The thing is, if you do something like Defender this, the Death Spite just kills it and he gains a bunch of armor, and it's like, well, what is your aim here by taunting this?
Yeah, the only alternative play other than Shadow Flame is to silence your own Ancient Watcher. But I feel like that's worse because you leave up the minion. Like the 4/1 can keep attacking you. Versus the Shadow Flame.
Yeah, that's very true. And like he will kill off your Ancient Watcher. So
right, with this Whirlwind effect that kills off the Ironbeak Owl.
Yeah, I would have preferred the Shadow Flame. I don't know when you're going to have a better opportunity to use that here. You know, like what are you exactly waiting for that to do something?
You know, of course, what this does do is give him some semblance of a board because most likely the second Ancient Watcher is sticking. And then from there, he can start placing taunts and prepare the way for Jiraxis.
Well, I mean, I would definitely consider killing off this middle Ancient Watcher, letting the other guy take some damage, and maybe throwing on a Fiery War Axe to kill the other one next turn. I don't know.
I think you just board clear and place Sludge Belcher here. You're still in no threat. Once again, Handlock can't burst you. So as the game develops, you're not worried about taking too much damage. Not to mention, you still have some good late game options that you have yet to draw. It's kind of unfortunate that both these players have yet to hit some of the real big power curves.
Yeah, it's very true. But, you know, we're going to have the game go kind of crazy in a little bit here as they start to draw into some of these cards. And, you know, I'm kind of leaning more and more towards this Handlock deck.
Well, I love Handlock against Warrior personally. I think I like playing Handlock against Warrior because I feel like Warrior doesn't have a lot of answers to like the threats that you do over time. If you're able to shred out their armor, like you said, it's inefficient. But there are ways for the Warrior to fight back, especially because Grommash is that key card for you to burst through that final piece of damage.
Very true. And, you know, well, we'll see what other cards are still in his deck. It's just I keep on looking at this Jiraxis. I'm like, well, you are just never going to get rid of endless tokens as long as he's very careful about what you have out when he plays it, you know? Because the most damage you're going to see from a Warrior in one turn is 12 from an empty board.
Yeah. Well, now it's interesting because like this Sludge Belcher poses to be quite the problem. You can't actually answer it right now.
No.
And you're not low enough to play a Giant. So
Sludge Belcher is such a funny card. I had no idea it was going to do this when I first saw it.
Nobody
it's like
did.
just this most annoying thing in the whole. Every time it's played, you're like, I can't quite deal with that all the way.
Anybody who tells you that they could have predicted the impact Sludge Belcher would have in the minigame is lying.
I bet you I could find a lot of people that would tell me that.
The closest person was probably Trump, because I saw his video before Next Ram's release that he thought it was really good, but like, no one thought it'd be like a top 2 or the best card in Next Ram.
Yeah.
All right, well now you want to test the laws of Hearthstone. Oh, okay. Well, if he lost his Jiraxis or
yeah, that would really hurt.
Of course, it's a 1 in 9 chance. So.
Yeah, well, if that happens, you're just like, well, I guess I'm not meant to win this match.
Oh no.
This is their final game, by the way. I mean, this is
right.
The 5th game.
The winner of this goes on to the winner's match. I think from here you drop the Defender Vargas. It's more mana intensive. The +1/+1 buff is not always. It's like you're not able to often get both of them. And the Sun Fury opens up more possibilities with the extra 2 mana.
I agree with you completely on this. It's always sad to have to play that like that. Ooh, a Gore Howl. That's... Look at how many weapons this guy has.
He plays 5 weapons?
Wait. Did we see 2 of Deathspite?
Deathspite's too good of a card to not have 2 of.
I have seen deck lists with 1 and 1 Gore Howl.
I'd rather cut back Fire Warrax before I cut back 2 Deathspite.
You'd take Fire Warrax out of a Warrior deck? Frodan. You have 30
before
seconds
I
to
take out Deathspite. I'm just saying because Deathspite's that good of a card.
Deathspite is fantastic, but
I'm not saying I take it out.
15
completely.
seconds, you can take it back. Fire Warrax has to stay.
Is there like a 10-second rule in Hearthstone? Oh.
It's time to Siphon Soul this ooze, for sure.
You know, there's a play once, I believe in Millennium Cup, where Gara played Nimsh, and the only way that Gara could survive was Siphon Souling a 1/1 Argent Squire.
Did he do it?
He did it, and he survived.
Did he win?
No, it was a fatigue
Nimsh
game.
top deck 3
something like that. He nimshed him.
He top decked 4 fatigue on his opponent. Like
I don't know, but it was a really close game, and it was a really tough decision by Gara that I was really impressed by.
Moves like that are just fantastic. We've already seen a few moves kind of like that today, where it's oh, you can do one thing to survive, and then he does
Lowelo with his Shaman deck against the Mage.
Oh yeah, like
he made some really tough decisions.
That Earth Shock, I was very impressed with.
Well, Matthew seems very stressed over his decision. He says, my plays have been so poor, like the handlock hasn't been able to establish board whatsoever. And what's scary is that Warrior's been holding several cards for turns and having very passive moves. Like, look what your opponent just did. He just armored up and attacked with a Sludge. He juggled 4 mana. So you think A1, he probably has finishing potential, or B, he has a lot of removal. And either scenario is not optimal for what you have in hand.
So true. Thing is, all right, like for instance, Sylvanas, I think that this is an okay play here because I think you're right. You can put him on so much removal in hand, and he doesn't have enough on the board to deal with Sylvanas, but Sylvanas will draw the same type of removal out that something like a Giant will, whereas she has less finishing potential, so there's a not so useful card.
Well, this is a hilarious situation.
Yeah. Oh,
Alex
man.
Strauss is just a strictly worse Giant.
Yes. That is right. Well, I guess Mountain Giant very late game can get
That's true.
Can get pretty bad too.
That's true.
I've cast a 9 mana Mountain Giant from time to time with Jiraxis out.
At least it's not Molten Giants when Jiraxis is out, because that gets awful as well.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Okay.
Yeah, this play seemed completely reasonable. It's really what he should have done there.
I feel like the attack to the face here is only worth it if you had Grommash in hand. Because he does have Execute, and he does have a way to pop his Grommash for the damage, because you equip the second axe here. But I think since you don't have Grommash, you might be taking on way more than you can handle. You don't even have Brawl yet. So like the reset button, if your opponent just completely bloats up the board, is not available to you, you could be in trouble.
Would you consider playing Sylvanas here when you haven't seen a Soul Siphon yet?
I don't know. I do think the debate's about the weapon swap, and it is for it. Yeah. But Sylvanas on an empty board, I always...
You have to avoid it, for sure. Well, looks like it is time for this Molten Giant. You think he might do like a Molten Giant? I think you're Molten Giant and then Earthen Ring and taunt the Earthen Ring.
Sounds reasonable. You still have 2 mana to play with.
I kind of like it because looking at this, like just Earthen Ring leaves you open to death because he has a 3-attack weapon and the possibility of the Grommash. So, and I don't like taunting the 8/8 because what if he has to proc with this weapon, or what if he plays Black Knight? It gets a little bit scary.
The Black Knight just blows this game wide open if your opponent has it.
Yeah.
And you can't put your opponent off on it. It is a control meta. Black Knight is really strong with these taunt decks that are coming out, whether it's Paladin or the Ramp Druid. You can't put your opponent off that possibility.
If I was bringing a late game control warrior like you were talking about before, designed to beat control decks, I would have Black Knight in it because you know there's going to probably be a ton of Sludge Belchers. There's going to be, you know, a lot of Paladin decks that probably have a lot of taunts in them. So, yeah, I think Molten Giant, Earthen Ring, taunt the Earthen Ring because that's the only way you can guarantee you live through the next turn.
Okay. Wasn't sure if he was going to tap because he did have the 2 extra mana to do this play. Like
yeah, this actually makes perfect sense too. It's, I mean, this makes you live through whatever happens anyways.
Absolutely.
You're within, unless you teched an Inner Rage to go with, you know, everything else.
Ooh, good thing you did too.
Yes, that could have been game.
Oh man, if he had another way to kill, like if this Earthing Ring was damaged, if he had an opportunity to have a second Shield Slam, he could have popped them for 13 damage. But as a result, he's just a little bit more.
This is actually kind of tough, isn't it? Because this 8/8, this is so hard to deal with.
And you can't go for the 50-50 coin flip on Sylvanas, can you?
Oh my God, Frodan.
What now?
It's not.
That's
the thing
dangerous.
is, it's not. It's a 33% because if you hit this Earthen Ring, you cannot kill it.
Oh, you're right.
Because let's not forget, you cannot execute it, Frodan.
Well, you don't even have a way to damage it first without overcommitting resources.
What a terrible turn this is for him. God, he was just like, he's just like so close. Yeah, this makes sense. Hit this with the Shield Slam, and he has to proc this 8/8 with his face, right? Oh, okay. No,
his opponent has, how many silences has he shown? He's shown 2 owls already, I believe, correct? He had an opportunity early game, and so now with double owls out, Sylvanas is really strong.
I know he used at least one, but he did use the 2?
He did? That's a good question.
I think you're probably right.
But I do think he used double owl already.
Yeah, yeah.
More heals for the hand lock, which is nice, especially if you have Jiraxis in hand, because you're often using your weapon, your 3/8 weapon, to attack things.
This is a little bit scary here, right? It's
definitely.
I mean, I think you have to consider using Earthen Ring and Sun Fury between both at this point. Because we see 8 points of damage on board, so we obviously need some taunts in here. He's at 13 life. So yeah, I think he has to play Earthen Ring and he has to double taunt. That's the only way to like make sure you don't die the next turn, right?
Yeah. Yes, you're correct. Assuming your opponent has the combo.
Yeah, yeah.
I was wondering
but
if
at this
there
point
was
you have to be careful with that.
I was wondering if there's an opportunity to develop Jiraxis and Soulfire. Like say you attack into Sylvanas, then you play Jiraxis and Soulfire.
Oh, I think he might be thinking exactly what you're saying, but 15.
Oh, BGH.
Oh, okay, okay.
A more very conservative play. He needs to hurry up. Okay.
Whoa.
That would have been disastrous if he wasn't able to get it off.
Yeah, if he roped there, that would just hurt. Okay, this is the value Alex draws a turn.
Alex Strauss is just a giant version of Iron Forge Rifleman. Like deal 1 damage.
Yes. Well, I was thinking more along the lines of Elven Archer.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there you go.
very small Nightshade.
I think so. You know, you're trying to see if your opponent has the big, large removal and Siphon Soul. You're still not in danger of any kind of death whatsoever.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about this warrior right now. Like, keeps on getting kind of close to lethal.
Yeah, he's the one pressuring constantly.
I think he is going to Alexstrasza. It's like,
well, it makes total sense if you're trying to establish any kind of semblance of a board and force your opponent to use removal. But you do get farther away. You need to develop a Gorehowl somewhere in between here too.
That is true, but I don't think that there was necessarily like a better play here. Now this is a Siphon Soul. This has Siphon Soul written all over it.
I don't see anything else.
Yeah,
Tap,
no, Alexstrasza has a little Siphon Soul tattoo on her neck right now.
She made some bad choices when she was young.
Yeah.
Ran into the wrong crowd.
And back up to 16. All right.
Well, as if Alexstrasza didn't do a thing.
I think it's...
Okay, well, Ragnaros when you just saw your opponent use Siphon Soul, but second Siphon Soul's...
What do you think about Gorehowl? Remove this 3/3 armor up, because Gorehowl puts all sorts of stuff into lethal range.
Yeah, that's true. You have the 6 damage remaining because of the removal of the charge, and then you still have the ability to pop Grommash and get that damage in, assuming your opponent doesn't have a taunt.
And the thing is, if he life taps, then Rag plus Gorehowl hit could mean death. I mean, that's
true.
It becomes a little bit, you know, risky,
a
little bit coin flippy probably, but...
Your opponent did use BGH and Siphon Soul, though, so how likely is it that he has the third piece of removal?
Yeah, I know. It's a very good point. The one thing I like about the Gorehowl is if you were to like life tap and play like a giant or something, you get yourself in a really nice coin flip situation. But anyways, does choose to just play the Sludge Belcher. Can't blame him for that.
Yeah, it's a safe play. You're still trying to feel out your opponent. There's lots of cards that you're still afraid of. He hasn't shown some of his giants. In fact, the second giant has been drawn here for Matthew. And this is important to continue to put out threats, but more importantly, you want to play your Molten Giants before Jiraxis, otherwise it's a dead card.
Yeah, that's very true. That's going to be the giant he wants to play quickest here. He doesn't quite have enough to do Molten Giant and Sludge Belcher, unfortunately.
Possibilities.
Because still, I mean, if you're at 16 and there's 3 on the board, well, I guess that's not... There's no possible lethal next turn.
He really wished he could have dropped a giant plus Sludge Belcher. Well, this is not insulting. Having double Mountain Giants in hand.
Hey, at least he finally got him, right?
I suppose.
I think this is an end turn right there.
Yeah.
You just start playing all your giants. He has to run out of removal eventually,
But I still
right?
feel like you had an opportunity to develop a giant here. Because he was at 16 health. Even if your opponent has the dream combo of the 12 damage from Grommash, I still don't think he would have died.
It's very true.
He's playing so conservatively, and I feel like it's giving Warrior more opportunities to find a way to guarantee lethal.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you on this. And what's scaring me is he might figure that out, overplays giants, and then a brawl comes out of nowhere and just wrecks his day.
Exactly. Like now Gorehowl is developed, and now up to 16 damage. Actually, up to 18 damage.
Yeah.
You're worried.
And there's the brawl. So we'll see how many giants he plays this turn. He can play 2. I doubt that we'll see that because that is a lot of damage on the board.
Now his hand's just too clunky. Like you can't play all these things in a reasonable time.
Yeah. I think, okay, so like 3 extra health would be 17. That Gorehowl should have 6 charges. So
9.
That is, wait, 17, so that's actually enough. Yeah, he'd still be out of lethal range and have Jiraxis in hand. So he can actually, he can Siphon Soul here.
Siphon Soul when you know your opponent still has some of the strongest minions out there and you need to answer them.
That's
is still a little...
If he doesn't, though, he has to play a big minion and throw down taunt. And well, I guess actually the Twilight Drake and taunting everything is fine.
Yeah, Twilight Drake, Molten, and Taunt.
This puts him down to... Does he have any Taunt Givers left in his deck? And any Sludge Belchers left?
Played 1 Defender and 2 Sun Furies.
Yep.
And Handlock players have actually thought about cutting one defender of ours.
Yeah.
So it is
There's a lot of lists with
possible
just
that he's
one.
out of taunters.
And if he's out of taunt givers, this is actually why the Siphon Soul might be a somewhat reasonable play. But I mean, if that rag comes out, how are you ever going to get rid of it? Oh man.
Oh. Okay, well, Jiraxis has gone, and that is going to be really tough. He's running out of time. He's a taunt. Okay, so Matthew just barely got it out.
Yeah, I think it's probably brawl time. Right? Well, I mean, I guess the rag is actually not the worst play in the whole world.
Rag.
But rag has the potential to go really wrong here. So I like the brawl. Brawl is better. As long as that Twilight Drake doesn't come out, you're in great shape.
Yeah, and there you go. And then Lotheb to seal the deal.
Really great turn there.
And now Matthew has to kill off this 5/5 and find a way to still make him resilient to Grommash. I don't see how that's happening.
Probably not with that hand.
In fact, it's not even Grommash, it's Ragnaros damage to the face too. There's multiple ways to do this.
Oh man.
Like, it's a scenario where you might just be in a 50-50 situation where either you lose your giant or die to Ragnaros.
Yeah, and that is just what a warrior wants.
And what a warrior needs. I would happy to be pleased.
Yeah. See, I was trying to think of that.
Yeah,
I'm like, well,
that's a really old song.
I can't quite think of that right now.
Only 90s kids will get it.
Yeah. Hashtag 90s kids.
I'm barely a 90s kid. I was born in the very beginning.
I was born in the early 80s, so.
Of the 20th century.
Now I'm a vampire.
I believe you. You've been casting for so long, it feels like you've been doing it for centuries. Matthew's running out of time. He needs to decide quickly. It just seems like
there's nothing good here.
It's just giant.
Looking at this, I know I'm dead.
If this is the case, you might as well tap, then you're going to die anyways. You're looking at 10 damage. You just dive flat out to Grommash.
Well, he just... Wait, that's a 5 charge. Yeah, okay.
All right, well, it looks like Lowelo will take this series finally. And he's going to end it off with a combination with Gorehowl, Grommash, and Lotheb. Well done.
All right. So another match that goes 5 games. Pretty crazy there. That was a wild last game.
It was, and we weren't expecting necessarily the Warrior to be the one that's favored in the matchup, but I think overall, Lowell played with his resources very well.
Yeah, he did.
Wasn't overextending too much. Things kind of lined up pretty nicely for him too, because I felt like Matthew was playing very conservative, and he was playing as if he was the one with the slower control aspect and wanted to remove everything, versus taking initiative on the board with big threats and the mid-game phase where Handlock's the most powerful.
I have to agree with you completely on that. I think that's exactly what went wrong for him. You know, if Matthew had maybe played out his Giants just a little bit quicker, took a little bit more of an aggressive stance, I think he was just really afraid for a lot of it. He's like, well, if he has a perfect hand, I'm dead here. Whereas if he had taken the risk one time, maybe he can pull back and win.
Right. And sometimes you just got to do that, and a lot of the handlock players here will also back the same exact thing. We actually want to invite Lowelo for a winner's interview quickly to talk about it, but that's a good wrap to Group B in terms of the first matches of the day.
Yeah.
Because we did see Green Sheep versus Tice previously, which, again, another 5-game series. It's been pretty intense. Savitz is joining us on the desk. What do you think of that series, buddy?
Wow, we saw some really exciting decks there with the Mage and the Shaman also running the Wind Fury, and that last game, oh man, so close. I don't mean to be mean, but I think that there was some like nerves kicking in. How much was at stake, and watching especially the handlock gameplay and also the Warrior, I feel like there were some easy turns that were full 2 minutes, and also like I could make like a long list of turns where as the handlock where I would have played differently, and I kind of feel like the handlock had all the tools needed to pull out the win there, but just on turn 4, like not silencing the Acolyte, giving Warrior 2 cards, that would have been I would have silenced the Acolyte in a heartbeat, and And I think from there on, with the 2 extra cards, because warrior cards are extremely valuable to a warrior, and kind of from there, the warrior had a lot more to play with, and things just started to escalate pretty quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, you've climbed with warrior a lot, and Artos as well, so you know how valuable that card advantage is. We're going to get ready for an interview with Lowelo and see what his thought on the series, and we'll have it right after this quick bump. All right, so we're joined by Lowelo from France, and you did a great job winning that series 3-2. Did you feel any pressure or nervousness as, once again, it's another series that went down to the wire?
Yeah, a lot of pressure. That was my first tournament, I mean, in front of so many people. So, yeah, a lot of pressure. My last game was really intense. I was confident about my warrior, so...
Yeah, actually, speaking of which, you're one of the few players, I would say brave enough to bring warrior in the current metagame. Is there a particular reason why?
Yeah, I knew that warrior, no one would take warrior because it's like out of meta right now. So I took warrior because of aggro mage. I was very scared about aggro mage, and because of Zoo, mostly.
Okay, fair enough. So you feel very comfortable with that as your control deck against the aggro. Do you guys have any questions for Lowelo?
I want to know why you banned the Druid, because I thought it was like very reasonable. What was your thought process there?
Because I hate Druid. I mean, like when Druid has like innovation and
wild growth.
Yeah, wild growth in area in opening hand, you can do anything. I mean, whatever you do, you're gonna lose. So I just banned. So
it's a personal hatred for the class. Yeah,
absolutely. I can get behind that too.
I'm with you on this.
I really like the Druid ban too, because you are running warrior, and there's a lot of like Druids that might give a warrior especially a hard time. So yeah, I think that was a solid choice.
Yeah.
Right, awesome. So Lowelo, now that Green Sheep's the one who advanced further into the bracket, not Tice, do you feel like you have a really good chance to just take this opportunity to advance to the top 8 directly?
Green Sheep looks like a really good player, but he didn't see my mage yet, so I'm pretty confident about it.
So a little warning, if you don't ban mage, you might regret it. Right, I like it, Lowelo. And you're one of the few people, again, who bring mage. Really cool that you have such a varied lineup. Props for your preparation skills.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, cool. So we're going to finish up with this interview here. Congrats to Lowelo again. You'll be playing on Friday against Green Sheep to finish out Group B. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to start Group C with Frezar versus Cupcake. Should be a good one, so stay tuned, guys.